Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are taking a really deep dive into one of the most chilling and honestly, deeply frustrating unsolved cases in American history. We're going to break down a dark narrative that completely paralyzed the California Bay Area in the late 1960s. We'll map out the timeline, really analyze the deeply disturbing psychological motivations of the perpetrator, and dissect the infamous codes he left behind. This is the mystery of the Zodiac.
So, to really wrap our heads around this case, we have to start by analyzing a massive psychological anomaly. Ask yourself, what if a killer actually didn't want to hide? You know, in the entire history of criminology, the most basic human instinct is evasion, right? Criminals operate in the shadows, they cover their tracks, and they flee. But not this guy. He completely inverted the script. He desperately wanted the entire world to watch his every single move. He literally mailed proof of his crimes to the newspapers, he openly dared the police to catch him, and he transformed the justice system into this horrific, twisted public theater.
Let's move into Chapter 1, A Killer Seeking an Audience. This whole nightmare officially begins with a totally unprovoked attack on two teenagers who were just sitting in a parked car in December 1968. But it's actually 7 months later where the killer's true motivation really starts to emerge. In July 1969, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Maggio are shot in a Vallejo parking lot. Darlene is tragically killed, Michael miraculously survives. Now get this. Less than an hour later, the police receive a phone call. The killer calmly confesses to the shooting and even takes credit for those December murders while he's at it. And the scariest part? He spoke in this flat, almost bored voice from a payphone just blocks away from the police station. He wasn't running away in a panic. He was performing.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, a rapid escalation of terror. By the middle of 1969, the killer realized he absolutely had the attention of the authorities. But that wasn't enough. He wanted the public's attention too. Mapping this out chronologically reveals a terrifying acceleration in his plot. We start in December 1968. Then the gap shortens, July 1969. Just 2 months after that, September 1969 at Lake Berryessa. And then, mere weeks after that, October 1969 in San Francisco. He was speeding up, he was getting bolder, and he was plunging millions of people into this state of daily, paralyzing paranoia.
That Lake Berryessa attack in September 1969 gives us a profound look into his intense theatricality. He actually approached victims Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard wearing this bizarre black executioner-style hood that had a cross circle symbol on it. And after the horrific attack, he didn't just leave. He walked over to their car, took out a pen, and physically wrote the dates of his previous crimes right there on the door, signing it with his symbol. Think about the dark psychology going on there. It wasn't enough for him to just commit the crime. He demanded absolute authorship. He had to ensure that his brand was recognized by everyone.
And then came the ultimate escalation of the narrative. In October 1969, he changed the setting. He moved from isolated rural lovers' lanes right into the beating heart of a major metropolis. He shot a taxi driver named Paul Stein in the wealthy San Francisco neighborhood of Presidio Heights. Now, to prove to a doubting public that he was indeed the killer, he mailed a piece of Stein's blood-stained shirt directly to the newspaper. Undeniable physical proof, just delivered by mail. He then followed this up with a plot twist that absolutely broke the city's nerve. He claimed he was going to start shooting at school buses full of children.
Now for Chapter 3, The Ciphers and the Name.
As the physical killings apparently came to a halt after San Francisco, a totally new form of psychological manipulation began. He essentially forced the media to become unwilling characters in his story. Back in August 1969, he sent handwritten letters to 3 different Bay Area newspapers on the exact same day. Each envelope contained 1/3 of a bizarre, complex cipher. His ultimatum: print his codes on the front page, or he'd go on a weekend killing spree. He effectively held the entire media establishment hostage, turning newspapers into his own personal megaphone.
It was within these terrifying letters that he granted himself the moniker we all know today. Many of his communications open with the exact same chilling phrase: "This is the Zodiac speaking." By naming himself, he took complete, total control of his own mythos. He wasn't about to give the press the chance to label him. He was the director, the star, and the narrator of his own reign of terror.
Chapter 4: Cracking the Ciphers.
What follows next is an incredible battle of wits, with a really fascinating contrast. The Zodiac's first code, the 408 symbol cipher, was sent to the FBI and top national intelligence agencies. Yet, in a brilliant little twist of fate, it was solved in about a week by Donald Harden, an ordinary high school teacher, and his wife Bethy, literally sitting at their kitchen table.
However, his second major code, the 340 symbol cipher sent in November 1969, was a completely different beast. It defeated the most professional code breakers and government agencies in the world for decades.
When that first 408 cipher was cracked by the Hardens, the message inside was deeply, deeply disturbing. He explicitly stated that he enjoyed killing people because it was thrilling to him, and he revealed this delusional, dark fantasy that his victims would somehow become his servants in the afterlife. But crucially, and this is important, he explicitly stated he would not give them his name. He dangled the ultimate prize right in front of the public, only to violently yank it away in a pure exercise of power and control.
And then there is this number, 51. For 51 staggering years, the second code, the 340 symbol cipher, sat completely unsolved. Let that sink in for a second. For over half a century, it just sat there, a permanent mocking monument to his evasion. It outlived the original investigators, it outlived the suspects, and it genuinely seemed completely impenetrable.
Until an unbelievable modern-day plot twist occurred. In December of 2020, the seemingly impossible finally happened. A small, super dedicated team of amateur code breakers spanning 3 different countries collaborated online. Using custom software that they built themselves, they finally cracked the 340 cipher. After half a century of waiting, the entire true crime world held its breath, ready to finally peel back the curtain.
But the reality? It was a crushing anticlimax. The decoded message was just another boastful taunt. He mocked the police, he insisted he wasn't afraid of the gas chamber, and he promised he would never, ever be caught. And once again, there was no name. The entire 51-year exercise was just another performance. The Zodiac had handed the world its most complex puzzle, only to ensure the final piece was permanently missing from the box.
That brings us to Chapter 5, an enduring, unsolved mystery.
So, despite decades of communication, the authorities never actually put handcuffs on the Zodiac. Detectives relentlessly chased down dozens and dozens of leads. One local man surfaced time and time again as the prime suspect. His behavior, his history, and his proximity to the crimes convinced a lot of seasoned detectives that they were looking right at the killer. But, as we know, the legal threshold for proof is incredibly high. The handwriting analysis was inconclusive, physical evidence couldn't close the gap, and in a deeply frustrating turn of events, the suspect died before anything could ever be proven in a court of law.
Which brings us to the haunting irony of this entire case. The Zodiac left behind an unprecedented trail of evidence. We're talking handwritten letters spanning years, incredibly complex ciphers, fingerprints, and even a physical piece of a victim's blood-stained shirt. He practically begged the world to analyze him. This is vastly more evidence than almost any serial killer in modern history leaves behind. And yet, through a mix of jurisdictional hurdles, primitive 1960s forensics, and his own twisted cunning, he won. He successfully evaded justice.
So what you should ultimately take away from this explainer is the heavy, lingering weight of this final question. Who was he really? Was he just a quiet loner sitting in a dark room building codes all day? Was he a familiar neighbor? Was he a man who confidently walked past police officers every single day, smiling to himself because he knew the game was rigged in his favor? Well, more than 50 years have passed now. The trail has gone completely cold, but the most important code of all, his identity, remains unbroken. And somewhere out there, the answer to America's darkest mystery might still be waiting in the dark.